Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered call-in show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Look like my mic check is up, my sound is looking good, and I'm in the house, y'all. How y'all doing? Hey, if you don't know where you're at, it's the Unfiltered Call-In Show where we talk about Agile Scrum, entrepreneurship, all those kind of things that we talk about, right? And here's the deal. My name is Devon Morris. I'm your guide on this show, your host on this show, and we got a little topic to talk about today that's really important, and that topic is, I'll remind you, let's split a user story. Epic, whatever you want to call it, right? So let's split it, is what we're talking about, right? And here's the deal. I want to challenge us today, that someone can give us an epic, a big requirement, and let's break it down together. I love to get your ideas. I don't want to do it by myself, but I like to have somebody give us a user story, an epic, and let's talk about how we can split it, right? And let's do that, okay? So if you got an idea of one, hey, throw it in the chat or come on the show and let's talk about it, right? Matter of fact, I would love for somebody to come on the show so we can take an epic and break it down, right? So that being said, what's happening this week? Nothing. The only bad news I got for you is that I got to push out the actual event. I'm probably going to push it out a month, maybe even a little bit more, because I got family stuff. I've been busy. It's just been crazy. So I'll announce that later to make sure everybody understands and have it. But I have to push it out. I haven't had time to do any work on it whatsoever. So I'm glad I didn't sell any tickets to it just yet. But it's coming. It's coming. I'm working on it. I just got to do some additional work because I just haven't had time. So this topic was suggested last week. And so we just jumping right into it because I was going to talk about retrospectives more. But that's okay. We can talk about this. I'm good to go. We can say retrospectives for another day. So welcome. If you have been around the show before, you know how we do. Say hi in the chat. Give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Say hi to everybody else that's around. Let's go ahead and start and have this conversation today, and let's enjoy this conversation about the stuff we need to talk about, right? Unfortunately, my LinkedIn audience isn't here. Every time I try to use that restream stuff, it's not working for me for some strange reason, and I don't know what the problem is. So today is just going to be us, and maybe we're just going to have to go in the future and go with us and deal with YouTube only. So we'll get there. On that note, in terms of the week, it's been a good week, y'all. I don't really have any complaints. I mean, it's been a good week. Come around, I'm trying to get things done, trying to make sure things happen, and we're just kind of good to go. Um, it's just amazing. So if you're new here, right? you know, say hi in the chat, okay? Let me get some shout outs to the people that's already saying hi. Patrick, how's it going? You, my brother, how's it been? Hopefully, everything is going perfectly fine with you, Patrick. Things are always fine with me, man. I'm just always over here doing what I do and then trying my best to make it all happen in life, right? So, welcome, Patrick. Welcome as usual. Patrick, think of a good epic for me, man. Think of a good epic for you, me, and everybody else to break down here, okay? Sabrina, what's going on, Sabrina? She's a brand new. Still got Similac behind her ears type of scrum master. So welcome, Sabrina. You was in the weekend class. I'm glad that you got that CSM and now it's out the way. Now now you know what I be talking about now. So welcome, Sabrina. Welcome as usual. So let's see. Azrael, man. Look, I'm sorry, son, but I will be in touch. Okay, sorry. All right. But I'm gonna say to you, You have people that have come to my class that's asking about you in class. You have made an impression, young man. You really have. You need to know that, okay? You really need to know that. You have made an impression on several people. Um, all right, so Chucks, what's going on, man? Oliver, how's it going, man? Happy Monday to you. Happy Monday to everybody. You know, it's always a pleasure. It's always a big thing. I always love it. Let's see. Evie, what's going on with you? How you doing? How's life treating you? Life is treating me good. Um, let's see. We got more people here. How you doing? Let's see. And Lakumbi. I'm Kunbi. I didn't get it right, but that's okay. How you doing? Welcome, 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 welcome. Okay. Love you, love you, love you. All right. So here's the deal, right? If you've never been to this show, let's talk about how it works, okay? You know, in about a second, we're going to talk about splitting stories. I'm assuming you know what a user story is. I'll give a quick explanation of that. But before I provide any explanation, if there is anybody that would like to join a show that actually have an epic, a user story, something that we can break down, I'm dropping the guest link in the chat for you to join me on the show. Now, why do I want you to join me on the show? So then we can talk about whatever this user story is. So I'm at this time where I want to do more about practicing techniques and not just continue to talk to you guys about theory. So today, instead of just talking about splitting a story, my philosophy is how about we really take a story, a epic, and really break it down, okay? And we can break it down together, you, me, and everybody else that's here, right? So I think that's a good idea. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. If you think it's a good idea, then give me a thumbs up in the chat, or just give me a thumbs up, like the video. But give me a thumbs up in the chat. Give me a high five in the chat, whatever it is, right? So throw me something in the chat. Let me know that you think that's the right direction to go. I only say that because I get tired of talking about Scrum in theory, right? I think if you're a Scrum Master, one of the jobs that you should be doing is, well, you should understand theory and you should have a good hold of practice too. So it's a combination of both theory and practice, and then we can take it from there, right? But give me some idea of some stories that we can actually break down, right? And again, whoever gives a story, I want you to be the main person to let's have a conversation about it, right? Let's truly have a conversation about it. Now, that being said, as you're thinking about the stories, right? Let's see, I got Patrick here. As a team, we would like to build this truck so we can carry some produce to the market. I get it. It's cool, Patrick, but here's the deal. I want somebody to give me something in real world that they're dealing with, like in an organization right now, like literally, and you have some idea about the domain that's associated with it, and we can talk about it. Patrick, what Patrick gave me, I like it, but my problem is I'm not sure if that's real world for Patrick, right? I want somebody in here. I'm challenging you right now. Y'all wanted to talk about this topic. Let's talk about something that's real world, okay? That you're actually experiencing, okay? Would love to get something like that. So type it in the chat or join me on a show. Do one of the two. Now, as you're thinking about a user story, an epic, something that is big that needs to be split, you're going to be responsible for helping me split it too. It's not going to be me who doing all the work. It's going to be you too. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. First of all, let's get the 101 or 101 on what this is all about. Now, just starting at a high level, okay? What is a requirement? A requirement is a usable representation of the need. That's all a requirement is. It is nothing more than just that, okay? Now, there are different types of requirements that exist. You will find that Agilists, Scrum Masters, Scrum people, people within this field they love to use a type of requirements that's called user stories. Now, user stories is just a type of requirement that's from the perspective of the user. It is a clear, short description of valuable functionality for who? The user. That's what a user story is. However, the issue that we run into a lot of times is that we expect the user story to follow what we call the invest criteria. One of the elements of the invest criteria is the S that stands for either sizable or small enough. Now, when we say sizable or small enough, what we're really saying to you is we want something that can be completed in one single sprint. If it cannot be completed in one single sprint, then that automatically makes it an epic. Now, again, can people swarm on epics and get an epic done in a sprint? Absolutely. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. But theoretically, one dividing line of a user story and epic, and I just say one dividing line, is the fact that it's too big to be completed in a single sprint. So what I'm not seeing in the chat though is people with these user stories. So I need you all to help me out because I'm not making up a user story for you. I need a user story that we can break down and we can deal with. Real world here. Some of y'all got this. Some of y'all asked for this realistically. Okay? So come on with that user story. I want to hear it and we can work through it. Okay? Now, that being said, a user story should have one to many pieces of what's called acceptance criteria. Definition of done and acceptance criteria are two different things. You can always think of definition of done as being exit criteria. Like a definition of ready is entry criteria, a definition of done is exit criteria. But that exit criteria is based on the skills of the developers. You're trying to understand all the activities that it takes to get something done. And so you use that to create your definition of done, but that's based on the activities that it takes to do the work, which again is not the same as acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is conditions of satisfaction that are associated or go along with the user story. Like for example, in a certified Scrum Master class, I have to teach you Scrum theory. I got to give you the foundations that's expected to give you what you need. Well, one of the learning objectives that is a piece of acceptance criteria is defining Scrum. Another thing that's a piece of the acceptance criteria is going to be learning about the pillars that's associated with Scrum. Another thing that would be a part of the acceptance criteria would be defining the actual Scrum values. So if you think about what I just said to you, for me to really teach you Scrum theory, I also have to make sure that you learn the definition of Scrum, that you learn about the Scrum values, that you learn about, let's see, the empiricism, defined process control, and empirical process control. Have to deal with those things, right? So really, nothing really crazy there. It's just you want to take that item and break it down further. Now, I see Sabrina's great. As a future investor, I want to create an LLC. So my investment, are managed by a business. Sabrina, you can get that done in a day. Creating an LLC, you can get done in a day. Assuming that you have a sprint that's one day long, you can get an LLC done in a day. I want something bigger than that. I want something bigger than that. I need you all to drop me a real epic. Give me something that you think could take more than 2 weeks to get done. Not something that's going to take you a day. It's just a certain set of activities. But right now, getting an LLC, hey, just go ahead to the website, type in some stuff, pay a fee, and bam, you're an LLC. Okay? So don't give me that. Give me something that's big, y'all. Think of something that's big that we can actually break down. And if you think of that something that's big, don't come to me like you don't have no domain knowledge because you're going to help me break this thing down. You're going to be one of the people that help me break this thing down. So don't come to me with me trying to give you the answers on how to do something. No, 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 no. We're only talking about a requirement here. That's it. Only the requirement. We're not getting into any how. Okay, so very, very important. So again, I told you about a user story. You heard that, right? I told you about acceptance criteria. You heard that, right? And you obviously should know that an epic is something that takes more than one sprint to get done classically. It's normally too big to be completed in a single sprint. Now, again, we don't really split user stories, we actually split epics. But you'll always hear us say we're splitting an epic. You'll always hear us saying that, okay? Now, I can just go with an example that I have from class, right? And again, I can just walk you through that. But again, I don't want to walk you through stuff that I'm making up. I want to walk through something that exists, okay? So, let's see. Patrick has given me another one here. As a product owner, I want customers to be able to log in and fill out their orders so we can generate good sales. Okay, that's a great one, Patrick. I like that one. The reason why I like that one is because there are a few things that we actually can do with it. So if I go ahead and make this a little bigger so you all can see it, as a product owner, I want customers to be able to log in and fill out their orders so we can generate sales. Now, he has the anatomy of a user story there, but sometimes even those things are just too big. So you got that as a, I want that, that's the who, right? As a, that's the who. And then you got the so we can, that's the why. The stuff in between that I want customers to be able to log in and fill out their orders so we can generate sales. Okay. Now, here's the deal. And Patrick, you tell me if you agree with this or not, right? Let's kind of work through this together. If you look at this story, I want you to understand something else that can make a user story an epic, and that is compounds. Compounds, conjunctions, things like that. Ands and ors is what I'm talking about. Okay. So when Patrick puts this story out here, I can immediately say to you something right now. Okay. And what that something is I can go to a blank sheet of paper and I can think of that and as a compound. That's a good place for me to actually split a user story because that and, unless it's permanently tied together, we could actually do something with that and. And what can we do with that and? We can split that and into the two pieces that exist here. So if I put this story back up for just a second and I move this story to the middle, right? You know, let's see. If I go down here, well, I can't really see that on that screen, so that's okay. I'm going to erase that. But here's what I want you to see. I want you to see that and that exists in that story. Now to take this and I'm going to put this at the bottom here so you can see it. Now I'm going to split that easily into two pieces. A login version of that story and the order part of that story. Does that make sense? So this is a compound, and I already can easily divide that compound into two pieces. I can have the simplest one as a PO. I want I want the user to log in. Well, let's just say this is a user, not the product owner, right? So as a user, I want to log in so that I can see my preferences, see my past orders. Okay. But again, I just separated that out into a login. Does that make sense? So literally, I can do that login, right? And then I can think about that order, right? As a user, I want to complete whatever the order form is. I want to process my order, whatever it is, right? So when I look here, I see Patrick gives me a little bit more information. Login portal is the first piece. Great. We got that. We covered that login portal part, right? So that login story, as we said, is about the user logging in. Now, here's the deal. What if that login is too big? What if that login is absolutely too big? Well, guess what we can do? We can take that login story and split it. Now, if I come here and go to the splitting guide and just go to where we can split things, okay? I can split this based on some really interesting things that exist here. So, one of the ones that immediately comes into mind is happy path scenario, this number 2 right here, versus exceptions. So, I can split this story, and I'm not going to write the user story format. I'm assuming that you all know. Based on happy path, this is everything going right. We put in, we go ahead and we put in our username, we put in our password, and we successfully get through the process, right? But also, I can split it based on exceptions. right? Because when I got that happy path, I also have exceptions. Well, what's some of those exceptions that exist? Well, one of the exceptions is if I have the correct login, correct username, but I have the incorrect or a blank password. Blank password, okay? Then something should happen, right? So let me just do this a little different than that because I don't want to talk through every possible scenario. So what if I tried to log in with the wrong password? That's an exception. There's going to be something that needs to happen based on that exception. Maybe I give them some error message. Or maybe I don't even let the button be activated that can actually log them in. They have to put a password in. So if the password is blank, let me say the password is blank is one option, right? So if the password is blank, then we do one thing. But then if the password is wrong, then what do? Something different. Does that make sense? This can be one user story. This could be another user story. This right here could have been that happy path user story right there. But what happens if the username is blank? If the username is blank, then I got one error message I can give for that. But if the username is not in our database, I can give a different something for that. Okay? So now you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories that are possible there, that are absolutely possible. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to that. But then what if I had somebody that forgot their username? Well, here's the deal. I can also think about who else is the splitting serving. What about a user that forgot their username? I can have a whole new story that is about forgot username. I can have a story that's about forgot password. And then for other people, I may have another story that is about I need to register. I've never been to this site before. I need to register. Or maybe I can have a user story that bypasses that and is just for guests. So now, as I think about this user story, how many stories do I have here realistically? I have all these possibilities. I got the happy path. I got if the password is blank, if the password is wrong, if the username is blank, if the username is wrong. Well, what about if I forgot my username? How do I reset that? What if how about resetting my password? How about if I have never registered at all? Or how about if I just want to log out as a guest? All these are possibilities that can be utilized to actually split a user story. So literally, I just took one story, and if that thing was too big, I found ways to split it. But what if I split it and was able to do the happy path, and that was already small enough, and then all the exceptions were small enough as well? Then I would only need to have two splits. That's it. But in this case, I'm able to split in multiple ways to actually help them with their stuff that's small enough to get done in a single sprint. Do you understand what I just did, everybody? Or do I need to walk through that example again? Because I have no problem with walking through that example again. Okay? The idea is that you can take anything and split it. Okay? But here's the deal. Let me just bring this up, right? Because I need you to understand this. You only need to split an epic as small as the developers can get it done. If the developers can get it done in a single sprint, you don't have to do any further splitting unless there's a reason. There could be something really complex in it that you want to pull out. But now, as you start thinking about that, I just took that login story and I gave you several paths that we can take. Several paths that we can take in order to get that done. Nothing really special here. I just thought about the possibilities of what will have an impact on my user, and then thought about some other things that could actually serve them. And all I really did was just use one of these scenarios. The scenarios that I used was a happy path versus exceptions. And then I used who else is this split serving? I just used two different ways of splitting to get as much as I can get out of it. Could I have figured out something different? Yeah, I could have figured out something different. Okay? I could have very well figured out something different. Maybe I want a different login for administrators versus people who are not. So then maybe I do segmentation or personas based on that. So I can even find more stuff to split out based on what we need to do for the type of users that are coming to use whatever we're trying to produce here. Okay. So now I'll ask you all. You just saw me split that, right? You just saw me split that, right? And as Patrick says here, but each story must flow towards delivering value and achieving the goal. You see that? If you think about what we just did here, just think about what we just did here and think about what Patrick is saying there, because this is really, really important. Patrick just said, and let me come back over here and show you. What he said was this: each one of these things delivering value. The happy path delivers value, doesn't it? Just think about that for a second. The happy path delivers value. Don't, if it's blank and I give them a warning to fill out the blank field, hey, that is usable for them. Every piece of this thing that I just gave you is usable to the users. It's valuable to the users. It's usable and it's valuable. Okay? So you got to think like that. Evie does another thing. She says, well, what about a security code? Well, what about a security code? I can even say to myself, I can have another thing here. Let me do this right here in a different color. Um, another thing, security code. I'm just gonna write an SC here. What if the security code is blank? What if the security code is wrong versus what is the security code is right? So that's another two splits that I can do. You understand? So, and then you can do all combinations of these things, right? What if the security code is wrong, but the username and the password is right? What if all three of these things are wrong? Which one do you tell them about? So, you got to start thinking about all the possibilities here on where you can go on how you can still give some value. It's all really, really important. If this makes sense to you, or if I just lost you, let me know in the chat. Is this valuable? Just tell me in the chat. Is this valuable? Because this is what you asked me for, splitting of user stories. And this is how you go about splitting them. Nothing really complicated, but this is what you do. But just note that all this stuff is valuable. And I see Petra with a thumbs up, and I'm going to pick on Petra for a minute. I talked to Petra a while ago, right? And here's the deal. Did I split that, Petra, based on how we're going to get the work done? No, I did not split that based on how we're going to get the work done. Everything that I just provided you, everything, Petra, notice this. Everything that I just provided you has value to the user. Everything that I just did. Everything that I just did here has value to the user. Okay? And so I did not split it into the how we're going to get it done. Hey, if you're doing software, here's the deal. This is not it's you got these silos of what you need to do. But we didn't split it based on that. Notice that, okay? So this is really important. So I want to point this out to you all because you don't have to, within reason. I agree that you're going to have situations where you can't split something. I agree with you, right? I agree that you're going to have technical stories and other kind of things that exist. I agree with you. I agree that there are certain just big things that you need to do. I agree, this stuff happens. However, I find in the vast majority of those cases, it's not true. I just have people that are unwilling to do the work that it takes to break it down, right? That's all I really have. It's people that are unwilling to do the work to break it down. That's really it. And if you think about it that way, then you can tackle it, right? But am I going to argue with a team forever about them being able to split something? Nah, man, I'm not going to do that. The other thing that happens with the story that I just gave you, I want you to think about this. I can prioritize these things. I can easily prioritize these things. I can prioritize the happy path as being the number one thing we want to do. And if the happy path gets done, everybody can log in. Probably, several of my people are going to be able to have the happy path, right? And then maybe the next story that's below that will be the password being wrong. Password wrong. Then maybe below that, I can go username being wrong. Because for me, what am I going to likely see the most in terms of my users? I'm going to see a lot of them have a successful transition through the process. But then probably I'm going to get more users that put in a wrong password than a wrong username. And then I'm going to have someone that's going to put in the wrong username. Does that make sense? And then I may say to myself, well, what if they put in a blank password? So password is blank. That might be my next most valuable one. What if the username is blank? Well, no, 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 no. I may say to myself, forget that. The most important story here is going to be a reset of the password. Password reset. Because a lot of people come in and they don't remember their stuff, so we got to reset that password. So now I got the reset of the password that is going to be my next highest value thing. And then maybe after that, we go password blank or something like that. Or what about them they forgot their actual username. They forgot it. Okay? So again, I can prioritize these things based on what I think is going to bring the most value. If I was to divide this by, we need to do all the database work, we need to do all the UI, we need to do all the whatever. I can't prioritize that. All these things right here needs to be done. Period. Every single one of them just needs to be done. Does that make sense? So you got to understand that. I'm putting myself in a position where I can prioritize, deal with, and do things. The other way you just can't is virtually impossible to do that around those activities. So the advantage here is I can prioritize things based on the value that we expect to receive. And then what if there is a blank password? I may just go ahead and say if it's blank, or if it's wrong, they get this same error message. I may say if the password's blank or wrong, I may say you're either missing a password or it's the wrong password. Just as the error upon them pressing enter or trying to get in. Okay? So this isn't a complicated thing, but you do have to have some understanding of domain. You having an understanding of some domain is going to get you in a position where you can split it better, where you can split it right. You can split it based on how it's going to give you the most value. So it's just a really important thing to think about, and there's nothing really tough about it. It's just if you haven't done a lot of this kind of stuff, you just need to get some cycles in. You need to get some practice in. You need to get some work in. You need to get on the field. You need to get in the game, and you need to make it happen. That's what you need to do. If you don't do that, you're just not going to you're not going to be as good as it. I've written thousands of user stories in my time associated with Scrum. I mean, thousands upon thousands, right? I would say 10,000, but I don't want to lie to myself, right? But the idea is I've done thousands upon thousands of actual user stories, right? And there's different ways to think about it, right? And I don't know what's the right size for your user stories. Your developers know that, right? They really do. But it's something for you to think about, something for you to deal with. Now, on that note, here's the deal. Any questions about that? Any questions about that? I see Petra here. She says good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff, isn't it, Petra? Right there. That's good stuff. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay? I love it. I love it because this is the stuff that you need to know how to split this stuff, how to give them advice on how to split this stuff. Really, and guess what, y'all? Remember, I just went ahead and used this guide right here to help me out. I use this guide to help me out. This guide helps to give me some ideas on what I can do, right? So you ain't got to go into this game by yourself. I'm trying to give you tips and tricks and everything else. You feel me? You feel me? You understand? Now, that being said, any questions that you have? So we're at that point in the show where I have to move on, right? So do you think it's worth practicing this some more, y'all? Would y'all like to bring some more examples in and we go through and we start practicing some of these things that we should be doing on the ground? Because we can do that here. I have no problem with that, okay? So here's my question for you all. If you have any questions about anything, you are welcome to drop that question in the chat, or you're welcome to join me on a show, okay? Anybody that joins me on the show is going to take priority. We know that already if you've been around, okay? You can come in, we can have a conversation. I would prefer to have a conversation about this topic. But if you got a question about something else, I'm good to go with that, okay? I want everybody to learn here, right? So if you got any questions, start dropping those questions in the chat. If this was valuable for you, then do me a favor. Give me a thumbs up, everybody. If you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you subscribe to the show, okay? Because I'm trying to make sure we get to 1,000 plus people. I want to get to about 1,500 by the end of the year, right? And I'm about to start doing things, right? I'm about to start releasing more videos, right? For us to really take advantage of and give you even more information. So we're over here, we're making this thing happen. We're making this thing work, right? And so this is what I want. I like what Patrick says here. Practical stuff is always great, and the best folks learn faster. That's the reason why when I thought about this morning, when I said, hey, we're going to split stories today, I'm like, I could tell you again how to split stories, but what's that work? No, no, no. Let's just practice it. Let's do it, right? Let's do it, okay? Let's do it. And this will be something that we'll probably have to do time and time again. Time and time again. No question, right? Yeah, breaking it down offers clarity and could lead to avoiding wasted effort. Absolutely. That's one of the primary purposes, and you want to make sure you work on the most valuable stuff. So these are things that as you can, if you don't understand by now, I absolutely love doing because I do it all the time. I do it all the time and I love it. I love working closely with product owners and everybody else. I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay? So really, really, really important. So, my question for you all is really very simple. Not a complicated thing. Any questions that you have, drop it in the chat. If you'd like to join the show, I just dropped the link in the chat for the show. You're welcome to come on in and let's talk about something. Let's talk about something. Okay? That was good. I enjoyed that. I always enjoy those kind of things because those kind of things make my heart warm. They make my heart really, really warm. Okay. And a nice warm heart is always a good thing. I always like having a nice warm heart because it serves a nice little purpose for me. It really, really does. Okay. You know, so any questions, please drop it in the chat. Anybody that got any other examples of a user story that you'd like to work through, period, drop it in the chat. I'm good to go with that. We can continue with this topic, right? I don't have no problem working through it all day. Just drop a question in the chat or come join me on the show. But yeah, user stories is a toughie for a lot of people. I just every time I go and I sit with an organization in any kind of way, I realize how bad user stories are within that organization. I realize how bad they are, how bad they're going, and I realize that my peeps is having a lot of issues, right? Um, and I it sucks because a lot of times there's not a whole lot to do about it. I can do about it because I don't normally have all that time, and a lot of times I just see it, and especially when I'm in a training class, I see it, and there's really nothing I can do about it but get some advice, and that's it. That's it, and then go from there. So it's just a good thing. It's just a good thing. But when you see it, you can know it and tell it. It's just not good enough to just write. You get the format right. The format is okay. The- you know, I don't care about the format. At least I don't care about the format these days. I used to only care about the format. Somebody who can get this format down of a user story, that's cool. But that ain't where it's at. Your agility really begins with your user stories. And breaking down those user stories in the right way where you can get some value is where it's at. It's what's super duper extra, 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 extra important. Okay. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, did I blow y'all minds today or something? Cause I don't see nobody saying nothing. And there's a few of y'all here. So y'all don't have no questions. I'm almost like I need to turn this into a half-hour show. No, I won't do that. I'm just joking. I won't do that. It's gonna be an hour show every week. Every week, I be making travel plans around this show. Literally, I do make travel plans around this show so I can make sure that I'm in a spot where I can actually have a conversation with you. So yeah, so this is really good. This is really good. Patrick gives another good piece of information here. When broken down properly, it makes sizing easier. Now, Patrick is throwing big words out here. You see him throwing big words out here like he knows something? Well, when Patrick is saying sizing, he's really saying estimating. So when I repeat that back to you, breaking down user stories properly, it makes estimation easier. That's what Patrick said in encrypted language. That's what he said in cryptic language, okay? So if you're new to Agile, that's exactly what he said. When you break down user stories properly, it makes estimating user stories easier. That's what he just said in that little sentence right there, okay? If you don't know what he just said, then you're probably not part of the club. I don't know why you're not part of the club. Sabrina just became a part of the club. Hey, Sabrina. She was a good person in class with her little headphones on. She had little headphones on like this. And she was paying attention. It was cute. Anyway, Sabrina's nice having you in class. I always love that kind of stuff, right? All right, so that being said, okay, you think it was good. I'm glad you thought it was good. You need to come learn a lot more from me, young man. You do. You do. You do. I'm calling you out on purpose. On purpose. That's a whole problem. Whole problem, right? You know, um, I'm gonna say this just for the heck of it because I just need to. This guy right here, this cute guy, I say cute. This cute guy, that's one of my kids right there, and so that's the reason why I can mess with him because he's one of my kids. He don't like to say it, but he's one of my kids. But he's a cute guy, cute. Handsome, 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 I guess. He's a cute guy, right? Anyway, that is so stupid. Oh man, that is crazy. Yeah, you can't deny it. Ownership is a privilege sometimes. All right, so that being said, let's see. All right, I'm gonna continue my little conversation on what I'm doing and keep myself moving. Um, Yeah, when you got children, they let's reach out to you all the time. So on that note, other questions, y'all. Other questions. Did I really just blow y'all mind with the user story thing? Come on now. Don't say I blew your mind with that. That's crazy, right? Let's see. Petra gave me something crazy here. As a consumer of privileges, I want to update the privilege based on an indicator so that when it is selected, Y, I can change the indicator to N and the privilege to Y. Sounds like to me, um, that sounds interesting. Petra, you asking me to split this because if this was small enough, I probably would split it into scenarios. Okay, into scenarios, right? Um, so if I was to just look at that for a second, and then I was to come over here, I'm looking here, and what is the best way that I can split her giving me a whole bunch of conditions? I look here, I got workflow, what's to do next? Workflow, happy path, user. See, who else? Segmentation, compliance, business rules, operations, by technology. And then I have by filters, and I have optimizers, acceptance criteria. Here's a fun thing, right? When she said that story to me, I want you all to notice something, okay? And you tell me if I'm correct, Petra. You tell me if I'm correct. If you look at this story right here, um, what are some things that you actually notice? I'm gonna put this up higher so you all can see it higher, right? What are some of the things that you notice here? And I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so we can be good to go, okay? All right, so I'm gonna tell you some things that I notice, okay? Something that I noticed that is important for me to see at the very least is just says, as a consumer of privileges, I'm gonna put that to the side because that's the who. I want to update said privilege based on an indicator so that when it is selected Y, I can change the indicator to N and the privilege to Y. Now, here's the deal. If this was if this was small enough to be completed in a single sprint, then what I would recommend that you do is behavior driven development, where it is really given, where it's really, let me erase that, let me use black, where it's really given, when, then statements, okay? Where you got the user story, as a consumer, I want to update my privileges so that my privileges are updated easy, right? So I got to use a story. So that's the easy part, right? But given whatever the scenario is, and I can't tell the scenario out of this, right? Given a particular scenario, when I change my when the indicator when the indicator is Y, that's your scenario, right? May not be a scenario, but I would think that they're in a conditional place where it's something that they're trying to do. When I want to change my privilege, when I want to update my privilege. So I'm in a position where I want to update my privilege, right? I want to update my privileges. When I change the indicator, when I change the indicator, the indicator, when I change the indicator to N, then the privilege becomes Y. So that's just a scenario. Nothing really crazy about that, but that's a scenario by itself. But then I got multiple scenarios. What happens when the indicator is Y? Does something happen with the privilege at all? That's the question. I don't know. We got to figure that out. You can also say to yourself, okay, with this story, there's a happy path here. The happy path is what is being presented here. As a user, I want my privilege updated to Y when I change the indicator to N. That's one path that can be taken. That is the happy path to the story. Could I break this down further than that? Yeah, I can break down all the other exceptions. So the point is, I can take this story and break it down too. Does that make sense? And then there are other things that can be associated with this. Other conditions. Who else does it serve? So realistically, as you think about it, Petra, I would actually think about all of the scenarios that are associated with this particular story and start to break the thing down based on that. Does that make sense, Petra? Now, this would have been a story that would have been good for you to come on the show with, Petra. The reason why I say that, because I have questions, right? I have questions, right? But again, if I look at it just for what it's worth, to me, that's a good behavior driven development story with a whole bunch of scenarios. And the good thing is, when you have all those scenarios, you can split that acceptance criteria, the behavior driven development, you can split it out based on each scenario. You could have a whole different story for each scenario and then have acceptance criteria for each one of those scenarios. So I would definitely be thinking about the scenarios, the positive scenarios, the negative ones, the happy path versus exceptions. I'd be thinking about all those cases and how many you can come up with. And once you split those, the question is, are those small enough? So realistically, there's a way to deal with this. It's just that story was a little convoluted. I definitely would have did the story itself about updating privileges and then made the acceptance criteria all the updates. Does that make sense? I see Petra's giving me a whole lot of yeses. So she said yes, and then she said yes, and then she said yes, and that's a good thing, right? So, so it's just nothing crazy here. You inspired a good user story and did magic, my brother. This is good. Yeah, yeah, no, it's just the way you think about it, right? Oh, you're on my forehead, man. Let me take you off my forehead. So it's just about it's really practice, man. That's all it really is. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just practicing and I'm thinking about the various scenarios that I can think about. And again, these aren't the only scenarios that exist. So even though that's a good story and I did magic, I really didn't do magic. I just practiced so much with writing user stories that it may feel magical to some people, but it's just practice. It's just a lot of practice for me. And all you have to do is you just got to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And as you get better and better and better, you're not going to run into a lot of situations that's going to feel new to you because you've seen it all already. So you just got to keep practicing. You got to keep writing. You got to keep doing it, right? I love working with product owners and working with a product backlog. I love writing user stories and actually coming up with acceptance criteria. I love it, love it, love it. I love it, love it, love it. Like I'm the overweight, love a heavy D. I like that. That is so stupid. I really enjoyed Heavy D. I did enjoy Heavy D. He was great. He was funny. It was the good thing about it. When he rapped, he had these. Yeah, he made you feel good, man. He made you feel good, right? I really did like that guy, man. I really did. He's from the same place I think Puff from, up there in Upper New York, whatever. All right. So that being said, what other questions do you all have? Great in terms of user stories, would love it, but do you have any questions about anything else while we have our time together? Okay. Well, here's a question for you. As you think about other questions that you have, what do you think we should talk about next week? I mean, this was good practice for sure, but is there anything else that you all want to practice that we can do virtually together? Is there anything that you all want to practice? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. A lot of times I think about a topic like this week's topic was supposed to be about that me giving you my retrospective example, right? And running through how we could perform a retrospective down to the agenda of a retrospective. I was going to give you an agenda and everything else for a retrospective, right? In terms of how I do it. But y'all said, no, let's talk about splitting stories a little bit more. And so definitely that. So if you have any suggestions for what you think we should talk about next week or in the upcoming weeks, let me know what that is. Drop it in the chat. I would love to have some conversations about it. So especially if you want to practice something, because at least once a month, we're going to do this practice thing. We're going to take something real world that you all bring, and we're going to drop it in here and we're going to work it. We're going to make it happen. We might have to do user stories several times. Right? So yeah, in the future we can talk about, yeah, definitely. Jackson, I have no problem with that. In the future, we definitely can talk about sprint reviews. I think we can dedicate an actual, sprint, I mean, a whole show to a sprint review, right? Yeah, it is often overlooked. It just becomes just simply a demo. And it should be more than just that. And it should be the Scrum team presenting. So definitely, I'm writing that down, sprint reviews as a topic, right? We did talk about retros, but sprint reviews is just a topic. I'm writing that down so I can make sure that we think about talking about that, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. I like sprint reviews. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like. I mean, there's a lot of things I like, period, right? I'm not trying to love everything, but the idea is that I like all the little elements, right? I like all the little elements of what we do in terms of Scrum because I don't feel like Scrum adds a bunch of fat to it. It's a really lightweight framework, right? And even I say to you when it comes to Scrum, everything we do in Scrum is non-value add but necessary, which means I want to do as little of those activities as possible. I want to do little of those events as possible, right? So and then we can have more time for value add activities. And I'll say that to anybody all day, every day, because that's the way I think, because I want us to deliver. Even in Scrum's definition, it says generate value. And generation of value to me is delivering. Even one of the core elements of Scrum is working product every single sprint. So we're just trying to get to that place where we make ourselves better and better and better. We're seeking perfection, even though we know we may never get there. So just know that it's just part of our truth. That's what we do. That's what we do every day, all day. Nothing really crazy, right? Nothing really crazy, right? And Patrick then said, y'all brains are churning here. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if your brain is churning, just admit it. Say hey, this was a good session. You enjoyed it. I got a lot to think about. Just drop that in the chat for me, right? Don't be silent on me because I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in your head, right? But yeah, brains are churning. That's a good thing. I want you all to be thinking about this stuff because I want you to get better. I want you to get better at doing this stuff. I want some of you all, matter of fact, no, not some of you all. I want every single one of y'all to outshine me. You understand? I really do. I want you to be way better than I've ever been. I want to be able to look at you and be like, they raised the game up. They really raised the game up. But I'm always going to think of myself as Michael Jordan, y'all. Ooh, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah, the goat, the goat. Yeah, the goat, right? The goat, right? Um, yeah, user experience focus. Yeah, that's what user stories is really truly about. Yeah, Jackson, I got you. No question. We definitely gonna get sprint reviews in there, and we may do it next week. Because I said at least once a month we'll get into some practice stuff, and this is just part of it. So I'm actually feeling good about it all. Okay. So let's talk about something else that's coming up. Okay. The 23rd, March 23rd through the 25th, I was supposed to have my event about bankable, about making this coaching thing, this scrum thing, bankable for yourself, right? I was calling it the bankable event. I'm pushing that event out to at least late April, right? I got to check the dates. I'll come back with the dates next month, well, next week. But the idea is that I'm going to be really honest with you all because I have no problem with being transparent. I have had zero time to work on anything, and then classes started back up for me for the PhD program. Literally, I'm swamped. And so I need more time, not to get the content together, but to get the registration process together, to get everything together so you all will show up. I need that stuff together, right? And once I have that stuff together, then it's easy to put it out there and make it happen. But I haven't had the chance, I haven't had the opportunity to set up an environment for you all to register. I just haven't, right? And I need to be able to do that kind of stuff. So and then I can make sure we're good to go in terms of that event. So the bankable event is coming. It still is coming, but I'm pushing it out. I'm pushing it out. And next week I'll be more specific around the date because this weekend I'll be able to get some stuff done and see what I was really missing, right? So we're pushing that event out beyond the 23rd, uh, out at least a month, right? I may have to make it two just to make sure that I'm good to go with you guys, and that's okay. I don't have no problem with it, but it may have to go out 2 months, right? Just because, not because I'm not going to do a quality show, a quality event. I'm not afraid of that. Just because I want to make sure I have one event and get everybody in it, get all the right people in that event, right? I don't want to have to do two, three, four events. I want to do an event where you can get a ton of value out of, and then when I establish whatever program we're going to establish, you can come be a part of that too. So we're going to work on that, and I'm going to work on getting that done. So that's my apologies. I'm taking the humble bow, because it's completely my fault because I just didn't have time. I'm up in Chicago right now visiting family because I had an uncle that had a little bit of surgery, stuff like that. So I'm over here just doing what I can with family. But on the other side of that, I didn't get what I needed to get done, and that's okay. And I ain't blaming nobody but me. Okay. So again, that humble bow, it's my fault. That's okay. I'm gonna get it right, and I'm gonna get it done, so and then we can make it happen. But it's gonna be a month to 2 months out now, literally, because so I can make sure everything is together, and I can take my time. The key that I want to be able to do is take my time because in me taking my time, it's going to be better for you, right? Just know I've been super busy, and trust me, with the clients I have and everything else, it is what it is, right? You know, um, hey man, you was in Chicago, man. I was in New York. I was in New York last week, man. So yeah, man, all the shy, man. I love this place, man. I love this place. Can't get it. I can't get away from it. Family's still here. Can't get away from it, right? Um, well, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that, right? I need that time. I really do need that time, right? So, and then we can have a quality event because I know quite a few of you guys are going to show up, and so I'll make sure you got that enough notice, so then you can make sure you're available, right? Yeah, great session. Yeah, put this stuff into practice, right? And again, if we need to talk about this next month again and going to practicing this some more, hey, I'm game for that, right? I'm game for whatever we need to practice, but once a month, and I think every second Monday we're gonna make it practice and second Monday practice or something like that, right? Because I want to make sure that you are good to go, and so I'll make sure that I announce it and get people more queued up for it and ready. Um, and then we'll take it from there. On that note, I'm feeling good about this session, y'all. Hopefully, you all got some value out of this thing. Any final questions? Any final thoughts? Well, final thoughts. No more questions because we got to shut it down. I really appreciate everybody here. This has been so much of a pleasure for me that I feel blessed to be here with you all, right? So that being said, this is another great show, knocked out and down. I appreciate every single one of you showing up. I appreciate the time that you give us. Again, if you have not subscribed, please take a moment to subscribe to the show. Please like the show. It helps us out with everything. and we are at about 815 now. We're gonna get up to 1,000 hopefully by mid-year, and hopefully 1,500 to 2,000 by the end of the year. So I'm about to put some real heavy effort into that. But on that note, look, I really appreciate every single one of you. Once again, know that I love and care about you. Know that I know that you're going to do wonderful and great things. I need you to keep doing wonderful and great things. The people that I'm always connected with, I ask you a simple favor: don't embarrass me on the street. I always feel that if I'm connected to you, you stand on my shoulders, but stand on my shoulders and make me proud that I'm holding you up, right? I don't mind being your foundation, but I'm gonna be your foundation. Reach higher, make greater things happen. Do way more than I've ever been able to do in my lifetime. Make your life way better than I ever can make mine. I want to see you do that. And I will be down there looking up at you and shaking your hand and being like, I'm glad you did it. How else can I help you get there? So just know that this is about me lifting as I climb, right? And then when you get above me, make sure you lift some other people and help them climb. Does that make sense? We always pay this thing forward. But on that note, I'm going to say I really appreciate every single one of you. Look, you have a enjoyable week. I'm going to see you next week. And it sounds like next week we're going to touch on sprint reviews. That's a topic we haven't really touched on much. So we'll touch on that next week. Other than that, y'all, peace. I'll see you next time. Next Monday, 8 p.m. Central Time is what we do. Have a good week, y'all. Thank you so much.